Men are moved by two levers only: fear and self-interest. Napoleon Bonaparte, they tell you influence is about charisma, about being likable, about making friends. They tell you it's about being a people person. That's a comfortable lie. A pretty story they tell themselves to avoid the uncomfortable truth. Influence is about understanding leverage. It's about recognizing the hidden currents of power that flow beneath every interaction. It's about seeing the pressure points, the vulnerabilities, the subconscious desires that drive human behavior. While they're focused on smiles and handshakes, we're mapping the terrain of the mind. While they're trying to be agreeable, we're identifying the unspoken needs and fears that control the game. Forget the charm school routine. Forget the empty platitudes about building rapport. We're here to dissect the architecture of persuasion, to reveal the cold, calculated mechanics of influence, stripped bare of all the feel-good nonsense. This isn't about manipulation in the malicious sense. It's about understanding reality. It's about seeing the world as it is, not as they pretend it to be. It's about recognizing that every interaction is a negotiation, every conversation a subtle dance of power. It's about understanding that the most powerful influencers aren't the loudest but the most observant. The ones who can read the room, anticipate the moves, and exploit the weaknesses that others ignore. So, ditch the self-help cliches. Forget the advice that leaves you feeling warm but powerless. We're not interested in making you a nicer person. We're interested in making you an effective one. We're interested in giving you the tools to navigate the social landscape with precision, with confidence, and with the unwavering knowledge of how the game is truly played. Influence at its core is applied psychology. It's the art of understanding the human operating system and knowing how to subtly rewrite the code. It begins with recognizing that people are not rational actors. They are driven by emotions, by biases, by deeply ingrained psychological patterns that often operate beneath conscious awareness. The effective influencer understands these patterns, anticipates them, and uses them to guide behavior. Think of it as mental judo. You're not trying to overpower someone's will. You're using their own momentum, their own pre-existing beliefs and desires to direct them where you want them to go. A key element in this process is understanding cognitive biases. These are the mental shortcuts that our brains use to make quick decisions. They are often helpful, but they can also lead to systematic errors in judgment. For example, the confirmation bias leads people to seek out information that confirms their existing beliefs and to ignore information that contradicts them. A skilled influencer can exploit this bias by framing their message in a way that aligns with the other person's pre-existing worldview. Similarly, the anchoring bias describes our tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive, even if it's irrelevant. A savvy negotiator can use this bias by making an extreme initial offer, which then makes any subsequent offer seem more reasonable. Then there's the scarcity principle. People place a higher value on things that are rare or perceived to be in limited supply. This is why marketers often use phrases like limited time offer or while supplies last. By creating a sense of urgency, they can drive people to take action that they might otherwise postpone. Another critical concept is reciprocity. We feel obligated to return favors, even if they are unsolicited. This is why businesses often give away free samples or offer small gifts. They know that doing so will increase the likelihood that the recipient will reciprocate by making a purchase. The psychology of influence also involves understanding the power of social proof. People tend to conform to the behavior of others, especially when they are uncertain about what to do. This is why testimonials and endorsements are so effective. They provide evidence that other people have had positive experiences with a product or service, which makes potential customers more likely to trust it. Furthermore, authority plays a significant role. We are more likely to be influenced by people who we perceive as experts or authority figures. This is why doctors wear white coats and lawyers use formal language. These cues signal competence and expertise, which makes people more receptive to their advice. Understanding these psychological principles is only the first step. The real skill lies in applying them ethically and effectively in real-world situations. It requires careful observation, strategic thinking, and a deep understanding of human nature. It's not about manipulation in the traditional sense. It's about understanding what motivates people and crafting your message in a way that resonates with their needs and desires. It's about leading them to a conclusion that they feel they've reached themselves. It's about mastering the invisible forces that shape human behavior and using them to create mutually beneficial outcomes. Consider the story of Anna, a junior analyst at a high-stakes investment firm, tasked with presenting a crucial market forecast to the senior partners. Her career trajectory hinges on this presentation, and she knows that facts alone won't suffice. She needs to influence their thinking, to subtly guide them toward her conclusions, even if those conclusions challenge the prevailing wisdom within the firm. Anna understands that the partners, despite their outward confidence, are driven by a complex mix of factors: their own past successes and failures, their individual risk tolerances, and even their personal biases stemming from years of experience. She begins weeks in advance, not by crunching more numbers, but by carefully observing the dynamics of the firm. She notices that Partner A is highly data-driven, valuing quantitative analysis above all else. Partner B, on the other hand, trusts his gut, often making decisions based on instinct and a feel for the market. Partner C is the most cautious, always prioritizing risk mitigation and downside protection. Armed with this knowledge, Anna tailors her presentation to resonate with each partner's specific needs and concerns. For Partner A, she prepares a detailed appendix filled with supplementary data and statistical analysis, going far beyond what's strictly necessary for the main presentation. She understands that this partner will likely delve into the details, and she wants to ensure that he finds ample evidence to support her conclusions. For Partner B, she focuses on the narrative, weaving a compelling story about market trends and the underlying forces driving them. She uses vivid language and relatable analogies to capture his imagination and appeal to his intuition. She knows that if she can get him to emotionally connect with her forecast, he'll be more likely to support it, regardless of the quantitative data. For Partner C, she emphasizes the downside risks of ignoring her forecast, highlighting the potential losses that could result from sticking with the status quo. She presents her recommendations as a way to mitigate those risks, framing them as a conservative and prudent approach. During the presentation itself, Anna employs a series of subtle influence tactics. She begins by acknowledging the partner's past successes, subtly aligning herself with their existing beliefs and establishing common ground. She uses confident body language and a clear, authoritative tone of voice, projecting an image of competence and expertise. She avoids jargon and technical terms, speaking in a language that everyone can understand, further building trust and rapport. When presenting her forecast, she doesn't explicitly state her recommendations. Instead, she leads the partners to discover them for themselves, posing carefully crafted questions that guide their thinking in the desired direction. She uses visual aids to reinforce her message, presenting complex data in a clear and concise manner. She anticipates potential objections and addresses them proactively, demonstrating that she has thoroughly considered all possible scenarios. Throughout the presentation, Anna maintains eye contact with each partner, gauging their reactions and adjusting her approach accordingly. She actively listens to their questions and concerns, responding thoughtfully and respectfully. She never directly challenges their opinions, instead framing her arguments as a logical extension of their existing beliefs. The result is a resounding success. The partners, feeling that they have arrived at the conclusions themselves, fully endorse Anna's forecast. Her career trajectory is secured, not because she possessed superior knowledge, but because she mastered the art of influence, understanding the underlying motivations and biases of her audience, and crafting her message in a way that resonated with their individual needs and desires. This is influence in its purest form, not manipulation, but a subtle art of guiding others towards a desired outcome, all while making them feel that they are in control. It's about understanding that every interaction is a dance, and the most skilled dancers are those who can lead without being seen. The trap that awaits the weak lies in their misunderstanding of this dance. They believe influence is about force, about overpowering the other person with logic, charisma, or even brute strength. They fail to grasp that true influence is a subtle art of redirection, of gently nudging someone down a path they believe they have chosen themselves. The weak player focuses on what they want, broadcasting their needs and desires like a desperate signal. This immediately puts them at a disadvantage, revealing their hand and allowing their opponent to anticipate their moves. They argue, they plead, they try to convince, all while failing to truly understand the other person's motivations. They talk asterisk at asterisk people, not to asterisk them. Their language is filled with absolutes, with pronouncements and declarations, leaving no room for nuance or compromise. They fail to read the subtle cues, the micro-expressions that betray the other person's true feelings. They are blind to the power dynamics at play, oblivious to the subtle shifts in frame that dictate the direction of the conversation. They become predictable, their reactions easily anticipated, their weaknesses readily exploited. They fall victim to common influence tactics, such as scarcity, authority, and social proof, without even realizing they are being manipulated. They see the world in black and white, failing to recognize the infinite shades of gray that lie between. They lack the empathy to understand the other person's perspective, the flexibility to adapt their approach, and the patience to play the long game. They mistake aggression for strength and silence for weakness. They are easily baited, easily provoked, and easily controlled. They argue about surface-level disagreements while missing the underlying currents that truly drive behavior. And most importantly, they lack self-awareness. They are blind to their own biases, their own weaknesses, their own vulnerabilities. They truly believe that they are being rational, logical, and objective, when in reality they are being driven by unconscious desires and fears. This blindness is their undoing. It prevents them from seeing the game for what it is, and from developing the skills necessary to compete. They become pawns in a game they don't even understand, their fates determined by forces they cannot control. They believe that their failures are due to bad luck, to unfair circumstances, or to the inherent malice of others. They fail to recognize that their failures are ultimately self-inflicted, the result of their own ignorance, their own arrogance, and their own inability to adapt. They remain trapped in a cycle of defeat, forever wondering why they are always the victim, never realizing that they are the architects of their own misfortune. This cycle is self-perpetuating, reinforcing their beliefs about their own powerlessness and making them even more vulnerable to manipulation in the future. The weak player clings to their limited understanding of the world, refusing to challenge their own assumptions or to learn from their mistakes. They are like a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the waves at the mercy of the currents. They are destined to fail, not because they lack intelligence or talent, but because they lack the awareness and the adaptability necessary to navigate the complex social landscape. The alternative is to embrace a more Machiavellian approach. This isn't about being inherently evil, but about understanding the reality of power dynamics and using that understanding to your advantage. It's about seeing the world not as you wish it were, but as it truly is, a complex web of competing interests and hidden agendas. To become a master of influence, you must first shed your illusions and accept the uncomfortable truth that people are often motivated by self-interest, that they are easily swayed by emotions, and that they are rarely as rational as they believe themselves to be. This understanding forms the bedrock of your strategy. You begin by observing, meticulously studying the behavior of those around you. You become a student of human nature, analyzing their motivations, their weaknesses, and their vulnerabilities. You learn to identify their hidden desires and their unspoken fears, the things they crave and the things they dread. This intelligence gathering is crucial, providing you with the raw materials you need to craft your influence strategies. The key is to never take anything at face value. Question everything, look beneath the surface, and seek to uncover the hidden agendas that drive people's actions. Once you have a solid understanding of your targets, you can begin to tailor your approach. This requires a deep understanding of psychology, particularly the principles of persuasion and manipulation. You learn how to frame your arguments in a way that appeals to their emotions, how to exploit their biases, and how to use their own values against them. You become a master of rhetoric, able to craft compelling narratives that resonate with their deepest desires and fears. This is not about deception in the traditional sense, but about carefully crafting your message to maximize its impact. You are not lying, but you are carefully selecting and presenting information in a way that leads them to the conclusions you want them to reach. Think of it as guiding them down a path, subtly influencing their choices at every turn. One of the most effective techniques is to create a sense of scarcity. People are more likely to want something if they believe it is in limited supply. By making your offer seem rare or exclusive, you can dramatically increase its perceived value. Another powerful technique is to use social proof. People are more likely to do something if they see others doing it. By showcasing the positive feedback or testimonials of others, you can create a sense of validation and encourage others to follow suit. Reciprocity is also a potent weapon. People feel obligated to return favors, so by doing something nice for someone, you can create a sense of indebtedness that you can later leverage. The key is to be subtle and strategic, never appearing to be manipulative or self-serving. The goal is to make them feel like they are making their own choices, even though you are subtly guiding them towards your desired outcome. However, always be aware of the ethical implications of your actions. While mastering influence is a powerful skill, it is important to use it responsibly and ethically. Never use your skills to harm others or to exploit their vulnerabilities. Instead, use them to create positive outcomes for yourself and for those around you. The truly skilled player understands that long-term success depends on building trust and maintaining a reputation for integrity. In the long run, it is always better to be respected than feared. The art of influence is not about brute force or domination, but about finesse and subtlety. It's about understanding human nature, mastering the art of persuasion, and using your skills to navigate the complex social landscape with grace and precision. It's about becoming a master strategist, able to anticipate your opponent's moves and to position yourself for victory. It's about seeing the game for what it is and playing it to the best of your ability. And that requires unwavering self-awareness. To truly grasp the anatomy of influence, look to history, specifically the rise and fall of empires. The Roman Empire, for instance, didn't conquer the world through brute force alone. Their legions were formidable, yes, but their true strength lay in their understanding of human nature and their ability to manipulate the desires and fears of those they sought to control. They offered citizenship, infrastructure, and a sense of belonging to conquered peoples, effectively co-opting them into their system. This wasn't simply about offering benefits. It was about creating a sense of dependency and loyalty. They understood that a carrot could be just as effective as a stick, and often more so. Consider their strategy of divide and conquer. They would exploit existing rivalries and tensions between tribes and kingdoms, playing one against the other. By offering support to one faction against another, they could weaken their enemies and consolidate their own power. This is a classic example of frame control. They defined the narrative, presented themselves as the protectors of the good tribe, and demonized the bad tribe. This allowed them to justify their actions and to gain the support of the local population. Their legal system, Roman law, was another powerful tool of influence. It provided a framework for governance and justice, but it also served to legitimize their rule. By establishing a clear set of rules and procedures, they created a sense of order and stability, which made their empire more attractive to potential subjects. And by controlling the interpretation and enforcement of those laws, they maintained their control over the population. Even their architecture played a role. The construction of roads, aqueducts, and public buildings served not only practical purposes, but also as symbols of Roman power and sophistication. These structures were designed to impress and intimidate, to demonstrate the superiority of Roman civilization. They were a constant reminder of who was in charge. It's no different than a peacock spreading its tail. All of this was carefully orchestrated to project an image of strength, competence, and benevolence. The Romans understood that influence is not simply about coercion. It's about shaping perceptions and creating a sense of inevitability. Their decline, however, offers an equally important lesson. As corruption and decadence spread within the empire, their ability to influence others diminished. They became increasingly reliant on force and coercion, losing the ability to inspire loyalty and cooperation. This highlights the importance of maintaining a strong moral compass and a sense of legitimacy. Influence is a fragile thing, and it can be easily lost if it is not grounded in integrity. Another parallel is warfare. Military strategy is, at its core, a study in influence. The goal is to break the enemy's will to fight, to demoralize them, and to convince them that resistance is futile. This is achieved through a variety of tactics, from psychological warfare to the strategic use of force. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, emphasizes the importance of knowing yourself and knowing your enemy. This is essential for effective influence. You must understand your own strengths and weaknesses, as well as those of your opponent. Only then can you develop a strategy that will allow you to gain the upper hand. Deception is also a key element of warfare and of influence. Misleading your opponent about your intentions, your capabilities, or your vulnerabilities can give you a significant advantage. This is often achieved through disinformation, propaganda, and other forms of manipulation. The element of surprise is also crucial. By striking unexpectedly, you can disorient your opponent and disrupt their plans. This can create a sense of chaos and panic, making them more susceptible to your influence. Think of special forces raids behind enemy lines. Beyond tactics, the strategic use of resources matters. The army with better logistics, better equipment, and better training is more likely to prevail. This is because they are better able to project power and to influence the battlefield. Morale is perhaps the single greatest deciding factor. An army with high morale is more likely to fight harder and to persevere in the face of adversity. This is why military leaders place so much emphasis on building camaraderie, fostering a sense of purpose, and instilling a belief in victory. Effective leadership is essential for maintaining morale. Leaders who are able to inspire trust, respect, and loyalty are more likely to motivate their troops to fight for them. They do this through clear communication, decisive action, and a willingness to lead from the front. And again, consider how quickly a military force can collapse, even when seemingly invulnerable, when the population no longer believes in the cause, when morale plummets, and when leadership fails. The same is true of personal influence. Your power erodes when your credibility is damaged, and when your actions are perceived as self-serving or dishonest. These historical examples demonstrate that influence is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon. It is not simply about power or authority, but about understanding human nature, shaping perceptions, and creating a sense of inevitability. It is about mastering the art of persuasion and using your skills to navigate the social landscape with grace and precision. And just like an empire, its longevity depends on the integrity of its foundations. Influence, therefore, is not a brute force application of will, but a subtle and sophisticated dance of understanding and manipulation. It requires a deep understanding of human psychology, the ability to anticipate and react to the moves of others, and the discipline to maintain control over your own emotions and actions. Think of it as a constant calibration, a subtle adjustment of your sails to catch the prevailing winds of social dynamics. Every interaction is a negotiation, whether explicit or implicit, and the outcome depends on your ability to frame the situation, to shape the perceptions of others, and to guide them toward your desired conclusion. This is not to say that influence is inherently manipulative or unethical. It is simply a tool, like any other, that can be used for good or for ill. The key is to understand the principles of influence and to use them responsibly, with a clear understanding of the potential consequences of your actions. The best influencers are not those who shout the loudest or wield the most overt power, but those who are able to subtly shape the narrative, to plant seeds of doubt or conviction in the minds of others, and to guide them toward a predetermined outcome without them even realizing they are being led. They understand the power of suggestion, the importance of timing, and the effectiveness of subtle cues and signals. They are masters of nonverbal communication, able to read the emotions of others and to adjust their own behavior accordingly. They are also skilled at building rapport and establishing trust, creating a sense of connection that allows them to more easily influence the thoughts and feelings of those around them. They are, in essence, social architects, carefully constructing the environment in which influence can flourish. The concept of influence extends far beyond individual interactions. It is the foundation of social movements, political campaigns, and even entire civilizations. Those who are able to master the art of influence are able to shape the course of history, to mobilize populations, and to create lasting change. Consider the great leaders of the past, those who were able to inspire millions to follow them into battle or to embrace a new ideology. They were not simply powerful or charismatic, they were masters of influence, able to tap into the deepest desires and fears of their followers and to channel them toward a common goal. They understood the power of narrative, the importance of symbolism, and the effectiveness of emotional appeals. They were able to create a sense of shared identity and purpose, uniting diverse groups of people under a single banner. The battle for influence is constantly being waged in every conversation, in every meeting, in every social interaction. It is a silent struggle for dominance, a contest of wills that plays out beneath the surface of everyday life. Those who are aware of this struggle and who are equipped with the tools of influence are better able to navigate the social landscape, to protect themselves from manipulation, and to achieve their own goals. They understand that every interaction is an opportunity to exert influence, to shape the perceptions of others, and to move closer to their desired outcome. They are always observing, always analyzing, always strategizing. They are the chess players of the social world, constantly anticipating the moves of their opponents and positioning themselves for victory. Remember this: perception is reality. Control perception and you control the narrative. Control the narrative and you control the outcome. Therefore, sharpen your mind. Hone your instincts. Learn to see the hidden levers of power, the subtle cues and signals that betray the true intentions of others.